So, since Mission Impossible came out and was awesome, I decided I wanted to do a video about the series and went back and rewatched all 5 of the preceding films. I wanted to examine the progression of the series from its beginning chapter in 1996 to where it stands now as, I'm going to say it, potentially the best modern action franchise in film. Quick clarification off the top, I'm not counting superhero franchises as an action series. I think they're their own thing. I know it's a bit of a weird distinction, but I'm making it anyway. And this also shouldn't diminish the value of my earlier statement. This series is excellent. But it also had a long road to get to that point, I think. Quick note, I'll steer clear of Fallout spoilers, but all the previous movies are fair game here, so there's your spoiler warning. Let's start at the beginning. Mission Impossible follows young IMF agent Ethan Hunt after a mission gone wrong leaves almost his entire team dead and him framed for their deaths as he tries to clear his name and find the true culprit. Look, I don't think this movie is that good. Don't get me wrong, there's some great stuff in it. The opening, where they set up this fake room and everything, is great. The mission where everything goes wrong is really intense and actually pretty emotionally effective. The CIA break-in sequence is phenomenally tension-filled and remains deservedly iconic to this day. And holy shit, this scene is awesome. I'm going to detour for a bit and talk about how well they developed the tension for this sequence and how important it is for the rest of the series. It establishes that a centerpiece of Mission Impossible movies will be heist scenes, and it pulls this one off brilliantly. They first established that Luther cannot hack in remotely, which seems to make the task difficult enough, but then it gets even better as Ethan replies,
"Relax, Luther. It's much worse than you think."
Basically, to succeed, the room temperature cannot change. No sound can be made, and no contact can be made with the floor while they keep the CIA guy out of the room. So how are they going to do this? Well, the movie doesn't tell us. We get to see it as it plays out. The tension in this scene is incredible the entire way through. Everything's going well, right? Then a mouse freaks out Krieger, causing him to drop Ethan, and we all scream internally, right? But it's fine, they recover. Then a drop of sweat starts running down Ethan's glasses and drips off. Don't worry, he catches it. But the CIA guy is coming back before they want him to. They pull Ethan up just in time, but Krieger fucks up again by dropping his knife because he's secretly a bad guy and wants to grab the knock list from Ethan, right? And the knife lands just a second after the pressure sensors are deactivated. But the CIA guy's back, so now they know they're there. But they escape. This is the best part of the movie, and one of the strong points of the series as a whole. The fish tank stunt at the beginning is also pretty cool and was apparently incredibly dangerous for Tom Cruise. But other than that, this movie is just kind of weird and hard to understand at times. Take this scene where it's revealed that Jim, Ethan's mentor, is alive, and he and Ethan are talking. Now the movie chooses this moment to show us that Jim is bad and Ethan is onto him. The scene is strange because it takes some of the wind out of the finale, honestly. It shows us without any doubt that Ethan knows Jim orchestrated the failure of the mission earlier, and it starts to give the audience suspicions about Claire. The latter is a bit interesting, as Ethan considers her as part of this conspiracy, but then he can't accept it. But his dismissal is lost a bit, as the image of Claire blowing up the car sticks with us in our minds more, and makes us start to see her as guilty. So why not do it this way? Instead of outright showing us Jim betraying the team, have Ethan make a subtle expression of realization as he's talking to Jim, maybe say something cryptic about feeling betrayed or something to Claire when he gets back from the meeting. I would keep him making the connection about Krieger being bad where it is in this scene, though, so it seems like that is the big reveal of the scene. I also like that it's the knife that tips him off. He noticed that in the CIA scene. It calls back to the beginning. Then have the confrontation scene play out more or less the same, except have Ethan reveal how he figured everything out here instead of the earlier scene. This way you get the reveal of Jim's betrayal, Ethan's knowledge of that betrayal, and Claire's betrayal all in the climactic scene instead of having that knowledge beforehand. Also, why does Jim shoot Claire here? I honestly don't get it. Please help me out. I'd like to know. I'm assuming there is a reason. Overall, though, I just don't think this movie holds up that well. It's a critical foundation piece for the series, though, and I get why people like it. It just doesn't work well for me for most of the runtime. Moving on to Mission Impossible 2. This movie is goofy and weird. It came out in 2000, and it just has that era written all over it. The theme song is covered with some totally sick electric guitar, bro. Now, this came out just over a year after The Matrix, so I'm not totally sure if there was enough time for the success of The Matrix to influence the design and production of this movie, but it really feels like it. Sunglasses and leather are just all over the place. Most of this movie just screams, I want to be the coolest kid in town, and it's pretty funny a lot of the time. There is some stuff in here that I like, and I'll touch on that shortly. But first, let's talk about the biggest issue, in my opinion. The entire emotional core of this movie rests on the romance between Ethan and Tandy Newton's Naya, and this romance is just too abrupt and unbelievable to carry that much importance in the story. So Ethan is sent to recruit her for a mission by Anthony Hopkins. Yes, he's in this. And instead of just recruiting her, he decides to flirt with her right off the bat, and then they spin their cars around each other briefly, which causes them to fall in love. I guess. I say that because they then sleep together once and then talk to each other like they've been in some serious relationship for years. There's also a lot of sitting around in houses in this movie for a pretty decent stretch of it. There's also the obvious things like Ethan and Ambrose jumping off motorcycles at each other and a dove flying through a flaming doorway, but those scenes are kind of hilarious in their strangeness to me, so I don't totally hate them. So let's talk about some of the stuff I like in this movie. I think the opening on the plane is pretty great. Actually, the first 20 minutes or so are all pretty solid. Basically, up until the car ballet thing, we're good. I like that they obey the comedy rule of 3 with this weird joke about vacation.
I'm sorry I didn't let you know where I was.
Don't be. It wouldn't be vacation if you did.
The fact that the villain Ambrose is ex-IMF is a lot of fun, as he knows Ethan and knows exactly how he'll handle situations, which plays into this break-in sequence where Ambrose gets the upper hand because of this. And this entire sequence is also really great. The shootouts are very well choreographed in this movie as well. Good use of the masks throughout. I also really enjoy how Ambrose's henchman guy is totally on to Naya's deception from the beginning, but is never listened to. He kind of reminds me of Urel from Game of Thrones. Like, hey guys, this dude is totally going to betray us. Maybe we shouldn't trust him.
You were right the whole time.
This is a strange movie, but I do think there's more to like in it than people say. And Mission Impossible 2 brings to a close, in my mind, the growing pains era of the Mission Impossible series. The first 2 movies are hugely different from each other, and both, in my opinion, don't hold up that well. Still enjoyable in their own ways, but neither hold a candle to anything that comes after this point. Now, you may have noticed that most of my video about Mission Impossible being great has been me ragging on things about Mission Impossible. And you see, the reason for that is that I don't think this franchise started out as something great, but sometimes things change and evolve over years to become better than they used to be, and shouldn't necessarily be judged solely on their past selves. Okay, Mission Impossible 3. This movie starts off with Ethan living a normal life and about to be engaged. Nope, not to the girl from the last movie. This is Julia, played by Michelle Monaghan. And this relationship actually manages to emotionally carry quite a lot of the movie, unlike Ethan's previous relationship. MI3 is mostly pretty great, except there is this weirdness thrown in there. Like, okay, this is going pretty well, cool stuff, nice, got some wall climbing going.
Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall.
Wait, what the hell? Did he really just look at the camera and say, Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall? Why would you do that? Okay, this is a minor thing, but it's so strange. I just don't get it. Let's do the negatives really quickly. The biggest thing for me is a problem that this movie shares with the previous 2 entries, and that's that Ethan's teammates are barely characters, and I don't care about them. Luther is kind of an exception to this, but the others really don't have much of an impact. This is really driven home at the end of the movie when they're talking to Julia, and the movie is making it seem like I should feel something about them, but I don't. And this is a problem that just doesn't exist going forward in the franchise, though, so yay. Okay, positive things. The flash-forward opening is great and adds an excellent level of tension building back up to that moment. Philip Seymour Hoffman is easily the series' best villain and gives a great performance. Kerry Russell and Tom Cruise convey the mentor-mentee relationship their characters have splendidly in the small amount of time they're on screen together, giving her death a real emotional punch for both us and Ethan Hunt. It also establishes the danger that Hunt will be in later in the film. This shot... The bridge scene is brutal and intense. The introduction of Simon Pegg to the franchise, even if just for a glorified cameo, great decision. This was also the directorial debut of J.J. Abrams, just a fun fact about that. MI3 is interesting because it sort of serves as a conclusion to a trilogy, but it also sets up some elements that will become tonal and story staples for the next phase of the series. For me, this is the movie that really allowed the franchise to grow in the way that it did. It's a pretty solid spy movie with a great villain, strong performances, and likable characters. It really seemed to learn from the mistakes of the previous 2 films and grow beyond them. And since MI3 sort of closes out the first phase, if you will, of the Mission Impossible series, I'm going to close out this video here. This will be a 2-parter. I haven't done one of those before. Very exciting stuff. In the next video, we'll dive into movies 4 through 6, which is where I think the series really cements itself as the best modern action franchise, as I said earlier. So, that being said, stay tuned for that video coming out soon. And if you enjoyed this video, maybe hit those like and subscribe buttons. See more videos like this one. I'd really appreciate it. I'll see you all soon. Have a good one.